So I'm here today with Matt Davis, who is a graduate of USC back in 2004 with an environmental science degree. And Matt's here to chat with us about his sort of professional journey from his start at university to where he is now, and actually running a couple of marine science-based companies. So quite an interesting pathway. And we'll start with university, Matt. What drove you to go to uni? Was it always on the cards? Did you have a break in between? And then within that, why science?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for the invite.
No worries, man. No worries.
Well, I left school, like I always loved the environment, loved surfing, scuba diving, all that kind of thing growing up. And just watching the development, especially on the Gold Coast, seeing how close they're developing up there, it's insane. And so I got accepted into the University of the Sunshine Coast and then had a year off. And in that year I went and worked at a futon factory and played classical music,
Whoa, we've already got to talk about this. Just tell me about the futon experience. So what were you doing there?
Well, it was actually a mate of mine got me into it. So, it was just a job to pay for my surfing habit and, clothes and partying and that kind of thing. So one of the jobs there was actually sweeping bits of foam up into a big machine and throwing big pieces of the foam into this big cone-shaped thing, and the standards and the safety standards weren't quite as high back then. So
I can only imagine. You still got all 10 fingers though, yeah. So.
I have, yeah.
No, that's good, and so that's quite interesting. So you leave school and already you're kind of off at one of these kind of random jobs that people experience along the way, and what did you, in that sort of gap year between leaving school and starting your degree, what did you kind of learn, even at just your futon job?
Yeah, well, look, I learned from people, learning how to deal with different people from different walks of life, and then realised, look, I could be doing a lot more in the world and making a bigger impact. So I decided to go to uni after that and study environmental science with a marine major. Which is always where I wanted to be, but I think in that gap year there, I also got a job on Fraser Island as a tour guide. And then I worked my way through uni, the whole degree, as a tour guide, and I got to implement some of my degree through the way.
That's awesome.
Talking about some of the vegetation types and the marine environment, and it was a really good way to do things.
Yeah, and so that's kind of a nice segue actually. So you started your university degree, and you've also scored the ski on Fraser, which sounds awesome. And probably a dream job for a lot of environmental science students. And you're getting to implement bits and pieces of your degree into this job that you're doing along with your degree. So I guess maybe two questions here. What did you learn about kind of balancing both of those things at once? And then also, what particular maybe skills and knowledge were you able to embed in that job?
Yeah, so look, balancing university with, I guess, some of the real world applications of the degree, as in, teaching other people about what I was learning really reinforced what I was learning at uni. So educating other people was super important in what I do and what I still do. But learning along the way, I think the specific things I learned was more people skills and learning how to deal with different types of people. I guess it all comes down to how do you implement this, and how do you learn from different people and learn how to deal with people and that type of thing. And I guess bridging the gap as well from the knowledge, just to make sure that people can understand, transforming science into a knowledge base into something that other people can understand.
Yeah, that's something that I was kind of going to ask you next. Yeah, did you find that difficult? I mean, you're sort of a university student, and you're working for a tourism type company, and you have this science knowledge that you'd like to share. Was it difficult, and did you learn a bit along the way about how to communicate science?
Oh, most definitely. I got a lot of blank looks. You'd tell your story and tell a bit about the environment and what's going on, and then in the background you'd sort of look around and everyone would be silent. So you had to sort of explain it in a different way again, especially to the non-English speaking countries as well, and a bit slower and articulate it in a way that most people could understand. And that's an important skill in itself, which I think is really important for university students these days coming out of uni and having all this knowledge and knowing where to find the information. And for me, it was about a cognitive process in my mind just to get that out to different audience.
So you're sort of translating some of these foundational skills that you've learned in uni in understanding the science side of things, perhaps through the more technical research side of things. And having to sort of translate that into everyday speech and to build relatability with people you're working with.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And as you kind of progress through your degree and you're lucky enough to have these really cool experiences on Fraser, you finish up, you get to the end of your university degree. What are you thinking there?
Well, I'm thinking this was a really cool degree. I had a lot of fun doing it and thought I knew everything. I just absolutely, I was ready to tackle the world, ready to make an impact. And then I quickly learned that, it's just the beginning, I really don't know much at all. And I thought, I'm going to be going out and playing with fish and, snorkeling and scuba diving and having fun. But that's kind of limited to a select few people, in the real world jobs, you're looking at construction and that type of thing. So.
Was that a bit of an eye-opener for you?
Huge eye-opener, yeah. It was something that I wish I had have learned a little bit earlier in what the actual, bridging the gap between university and reality. Yep. And finding out, exactly what you're going to be doing. I think everyone, knows how to find the information these days and how to research, but bridging that gap and finding out the information and what to do in the real world is kind of a skill that's a little bit was missing for me.
Yeah, and so what would you have done differently if you could then to sort of achieve that skill? If hindsight being 2020, what do you think you would have done differently?
Yeah. Oh, look, at university, I would have probably had more opportunity I would have liked more opportunity actually going out into the real world and getting contacts in the real world and talking to people, and mentorship's a big one. So, which is something I learnt later on when I slipped into the business side of things, but. I definitely recommend, I would have liked to see more real-world experiences, maybe an internship or having those contacts there.
Well, I definitely probably can say with a lot of confidence that I think it's probably changed a lot in that regard as well since you've been there with those. And another thing I want to touch on with mentorship and that, since you're talking about that, and that's kind of a lifelong thing that I think a lot of the alumni that we've talked to have said is really, really important. But and you said you didn't really get it until you went to the business direction. Is that something that you think is maybe a bit more prominent in the business scene than maybe more so the science scene?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like you don't normally hear of people going out and having a science mentor, or at least when I was there, that's something that's not around. You just have to look at all the business coaching and mentorship and programs that are available for businesses and entrepreneurs, which is highly recommend doing that. But for the science field as well, that's something that we actually developing, or we're developing now through Coastal Protection Corps. That's something that I saw as a bit of a gap actually for the science.
Sure.
Yeah,
it sounds like that. Yeah. So you finish, you've rocked out of uni, your eyes are sort of opened a bit that, it's I'm not just be cruising around snorkeling with fish and doing research and stuff. It's a bit eye-opening for you. So what's next? So what did you do?
So I continued on tour guiding and that for a while, and then thought I'm going to do a bit of travelling for a while. So I went and lived in Japan, taught English over there, and
so nothing to do with science? Nothing
to do with science, no. And then came back and thought, well, I don't mind this teaching sort of thing, and went back and I started a master's degree in education with a major in TESOL, and then went back and taught at Australian Catholic Uni.
So you pursued it, the whole TESOL thing?
Well, yeah, I went down that track for a little bit, just so I could travel overseas to start with. Met my wife somewhere in between, and we ended up travelling around to Perth and had our son. So
yeah, far out.
And then I thought, from there, it's time to implement my degree and what I really wanted to do, because that was just like a filler, something to do while I'm travelling. Yeah.
You call it a filler, but undoubtedly you probably learned a lot in that process. So what did you learn living overseas, and what did you learn by going back and studying a different, basically, skill set or knowledge base, totally outside of your undergrad?
Yeah, well, with education as well, the tour guiding sort of blended into that little bit of education, so it's a good transition into there. Yes, but look, in Japan and travelling, a lot of independence. You sort of you're on your own, especially. You hear a lot of people going over to London and doing that type of thing. So, but when you're in a place that doesn't speak English, you're immersed in the culture. You get cultural awareness, and again, learning how to deal with different types of people, which is a massive skill to have and important in any discipline.
Traveled around a little bit, did the master's degree, and then said, right, I've got to figure something out. I know my passion's always been with the environment, and what's next from here. So what was next? How did you move to, or what did you move to next? What happened?
Yeah, well, after that, I started applying for environmental science roles and environmental-based roles. Ended up getting my first job with the Queensland Government in Department of Transport and Main Roads. And then...
and what was that about? Like, was that kind of like, oh, I didn't expect to be working for the Department of Main Roads, like as an environmental scientist?
Exactly, yeah. It was... I didn't even know, those kind of opportunities existed. Maybe a little bit of naivety from me, but I had a vision I'd be working at a research centre or an aquaculture research centre, or doing research on coral. So when I found out that they did this, it was good. But I was working in the actual marine infrastructure delivery branch, which again I didn't know those opportunities existed. Yeah. So for me, I guess just being aware of what jobs are available and where you can actually look to get that base and go in the direction that you want to go.
Was that hard for you? Is that again sort of a bit of an eye-opening situation when you were going, well, geez, I didn't even know environmental science could be applied in these areas?
Yeah, it was definitely an eye-opener, and I was using a complete different set of skills that I had developed. So I was looking at approvals and looking at ecological studies on boat ramps and dredging and that type of thing. But mainly I had to do a lot of research myself just to get up to speed on what was going on, especially with the legislation and that type of thing, whereas I sort of, my degree focused a lot on research and,
So you had the core skills there, but they basically had to be recontextualized into the area you were working on, and then again having to respond to some of these other environmental elements. And when I mean environmental elements, in this case, like sort of business environment, like the political environment, maybe the economic environment, and these types of things. All part of the learning process as well. So
yeah, most definitely, yeah.
And how long did you stay in sort of the government positions in that?
So that role, I was there from about 2008 to around about 2012. Yeah, and then got a good foundation there of how all aquatic projects across Queensland.
Project management skills as well.
Exactly, yeah. Actually did some project management courses and...
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And within this, again, learning how to navigate government.
Yep.
And deal with...
And that's a different skill in itself. Yeah, so working with... the processes and how things are done, and they say green tape, red tape and all that type of thing, but these processes are all there, I guess, to track what goes on, and that was a good base in itself, and which I used later on as a foundation to structure a business when I went into the business fields. But that sort of things, project management skills is a big one as well, which you kind of touch on, I did kind of touch on in my degree, but nothing solid. You learn little bits and pieces and puzzle it together yourself.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So degree, what you're kind of saying is your degree kind of provides a lot of foundational skills that you continue to develop as you transition into the real world across the many different jobs that you'll inevitably have. So. Yep. Were any of these jobs you kind of got right out of uni and moving into sort of the government position, would you call these your dream job, or were they stepping stones, or what did they mean to you?
Definitely not my dream job, yeah. But like I was stoked to be there. I was in the field and I had a path. Like in saying that, I had an opportunity, and that in itself was a big learning for me. Just realising that I've got to put in the hard yards and get this foundation and to really get to do what I want to do. Yep. And later on, when I got that foundation, I actually implemented things like the water quality monitoring program, and I got it recognised for my marine work within the department, and presented a few talks, and I could actually mould my career in a way to where I wanted to go.
You embraced it. You
yeah.
did what you could from it.
Yep.
Grew from it, developed from it, and kind of made it yours. You owned it.
Yeah. Well, you have to. Yeah, because if you're not happy in doing what you're doing, you've got to have a vision on what you want to be doing, and at least get that foundation. So
Sure.
Yeah.
And you mentioned moving into business. So it's quite obvious that you have a kind of a nice balance or a sort of tie between science and business. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing that has this kind of balance of science and business?
Yeah. Well. It's an environmental consultancy. It's called Australian Coastal and Marine Ecology. That's the main consultancy company. But we work on large billion-dollar infrastructure projects. The last one we've worked on is the Moreton Bay Rail Link. So we were managing all the environmental aspects of that, and things like water quality, offsets, rehabilitation, that type of thing, as well as the legislation side. So pretty much every aspect of environmental science as applicable to construction projects. But the business side of things, that's another kettle of fish that I had to learn pretty quickly about. So I did a small business Cert 4, just to get that fundamental background. But
so again, the realization that, hey, I need to expand my skill set again. I need to grow my or add to my toolbox, if you will.
Exactly, continual development. That's what it's all about. You got to just identify where the gaps are, research it, study, and then implementing it is the big thing. Because without action, you've got all these bits of paper and all these things, and that's great, but implementing it is the key. And
so, with someone from a science background, not much prior business knowledge or experience, apart
zero.
from what you said, zero. Like picking up some project management skills and things like that from your government experience. So. Yeah. What did you find most daunting about the business side of things?
Look, if I think back, and if I had have known the whole process when I first started, it could be different, But I just said, yep, I can do it, and just took every step of the way and just threw myself in 100%. But the business side of things, most daunting, to start with, it was getting the projects, getting the fundamental or foundation projects in there so that we could.
So actually drumming up some initial business.
Drumming up the business. And
cash flow.
Making the contacts, cash flow. They were all initial concerns because, I had nothing when I delved into business.
You had nothing, but you would have drawn off something. You thought you had nothing, but so what did you turn to? So you went back and got your Cert 4, and that would have given you some perspective, but. Yeah. Were you able to draw on any sort of these skills that you'd built up over time, even starting with your full-time job, all the way through, your government experience, your uni degree?
Yep. Good point. Like all of that, I used all of that. Yep. There was, I guess, the contacts and how to deal with people, or how to talk to different types of people, and calling them and getting the contacts going in that regard. And then also the project management skills, using that to go, all right, well, this is the 90-day plan. I'm going to get this in place. This is the business plan, and I guess the formal writing styles from my degree as well.
Different. Different with business and science style writing and the communication
definitely, there. And that was a bit of a transition, in fine tuning what the actual business style writing or even proposal writing is. Much different to your scientific style of writing, yeah.
Did you have any just royal fails?
A lot. So, I guess...
As you stroke the beard, How long I'm stroking my beard, that's about 10, 15 times.
Yeah. Well, I think we put in 100 proposals or something before we actually won a proposal and fine-tuned it. And
100 proposals.
At least, yeah.
Wow.
Quite a lot. And
what kept you going? How do you deal with that?
Well, really, honestly, I think my kids, thinking back and going, I've got 2 kids now, 2 young kids, and this has got to happen. And, I guess a passion for the environment and marine science and doing things right, because I'd seen how things were done. So I thought, well, I can do this better, and I'm going to make it happen. So.
Is that sort of passion, your family driving you, your own self-passion, just to make it happen?
Yeah, well, and just thinking towards the future, about my kids and what they're going to be doing in the future, because I want them to enjoy, the corals and surfing and that type of thing when they're older. So that just gave me the drive to get it done. Yeah.
How do you find wearing the business and science hat? How challenging is that for you?
Yeah, look, it is a big challenge, and it's something that you have to sort of, you have to know when to chop and change between the disciplines, because, and I think business is about building relationships, whereas science is about, deducing getting the information, reporting on what it is, to an ethical standard, and keeping that.
That level of rigor there.
Yeah, rigor and, whereas business, I guess there is also that level of authenticity. Without that authenticity, you're just another.
You don't build a relationship.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, for me, it's about building relationships and maintaining that quality assurance for the business side, whereas all the science is quality assurance as well. But
so, kind of without the relationship, you're never in the position to communicate the value or the benefit of the science, and they don't trust what you might be saying without building that relationship.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that kind of a fair way to describe the dichotomy?
Most definitely, yeah. Well, you have to, you've got to be able to trust the people that you're sending out to do the science, but if you're not authentic in what you do and don't believe in, what you're doing. So, for me, what drives my whole company is inspiring future, and that's our core purpose, and we actually we live by that. So our values.
Yeah. So I think that's actually a really good lesson, because in doing some research about you on LinkedIn and that sort of stuff, that's one of the things I noticed right away. And again, because I teach marketing, so we talk about the value proposition, and the way you sort of articulate that, you talk about again, inspiring, a better way to do things, and the values associated with that. You don't harp on about the methods that you use. That's part of the background service you provide. But what you're truly providing and what helps you forge those relationships is the novel way in which you're going to change things for the better.
Yeah, well, you're just another business if you're not driven by your why. I believe,
why, that's right.
Because. For us, I believe in inspiring future, and I believe that we can all make a difference, but by inspiring our future generations to develop solutions to our most complex environmental challenges, we can truly make a lasting impact. And I wake up every day believing that. And that's what drives our whole company and our whole purpose, and that drives, all our values and the business side of things as well. And
it's embedded in the culture of you.
Embedded in the culture, yeah. But the challenging thing for me is finding people that, skilled scientists that, could be in the office for months at a time, but enjoy field work and proposal writing and report writing. It's a kind of a unique set of skills, and everyone these days just wants to jump straight into the cool stuff, recently we were in Byron Bay doing a study down there, and that's like a rare kind of thing, Yeah.
And so it's about being patient. If you were to give advice to future students, it's about sort of being patient and understanding the various facets of a job and an industry that you might need to draw from, and that it's not necessarily just one type of thing you're going to be doing and that's it.
Yeah, you have to be patient. And you have to accept that you don't know everything when you finish university, and there is gaps that you'll have to fill in and learn. Continual development. For forever, but for at least the 5 years. Post degree, you can learn a lot from your mentors and people around you, and just embrace that. Don't try and. It's not a race.
No. And you talk a lot about what you do as being inspirational in that. Is there anything within your journey and your sort of professional experience that has triggered a different way of thinking about what you do?
Yeah, most definitely. Like last year, we won an innovation award for one of the companies there, which is all about inspiring our future generations. And then we're invited to Necker Island, which is Sir Richard Branson's home on Necker Island. Yeah.
And so did you
And
meet Richard Branson as well?
yeah, we hung out with Richard for 5 days. Yeah, on his island. We were invited there with 32 other entrepreneurs,
Wow.
and then sat down at dinner. And Richard sat right across from me. And I got the opportunity to talk to him about some of our most pressing issues about our oceans and how we can collaborate together across the globe. But I think one of an experience on the island there, he's got this place called the Temple. It overlooks the whole, like all the Caribbean. The waters are beautiful. And this is the room where the Elders was created. And if you don't know the Elders, that's people like Nelson Mandela and the world leaders trying to make change. But sitting in that room, I actually asked Richard, how do you go about finding the right people? And he said to me, I usually find them within the company, which is good when you're a billionaire and you've got millions of people or thousands of people to choose from. But then he said, find the best person, find someone better than you, and then hire them. In business, that's exactly what he does. So I think that experience, opened my eyes just to show what you can do, and you don't have to be an arsehole to be, successful. Because he's a genuine guy. You get that authenticity from speaking to him, and he's probably one of the most influential, guys in the environmental field as well.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
There's a million more questions I could ask you about that experience, and maybe another time. And I'd love to tease that out a bit more. But for the sake of our students that are within their degree and that are about to transition into the real world, what sort of advice would you give them in terms of how do they use the knowledge and skill base that they picked up from the university? What do you think is the most important things? What do you look for when you're hiring someone based off your conversations with a guy like Richard Branson?
Yeah, look, for me, like when we're hiring, we look for someone that's going to fit in our culture. Someone that's got, because when you do a degree, you know how to find the information, you know how to research. Well, that's what we'd expect at least. But someone that's fitting into our culture and that's going to be there for the long haul. So we don't want to train someone up and then have them leave within a few months, or someone that's looking for just a quick fix, or wants to dive straight into the good stuff. Someone that's going to take their time learning and learn from their others and give back a lot as well.
Yes. So basically, would you say that it's pretty important to kind of do your homework a bit before you're going into an interview, whether it's in a company like yours or any company, and actually get a grasp of the culture in that? Is that a useful piece of advice, you would think?
Find out about the culture, research exactly what they're all about, and if it doesn't fit in with your ethical standards or what you believe in as well, then I would suggest going somewhere else, and find a fit for you, like for someone that's going to, for the right company, there's the right person.
Can you give an example of maybe a recent hire within the last little while of someone that stood out to you and why they stood out to you?
Yeah, look, we've had, I guess, we had someone that stood out. They'd had an honours degree, so we knew they knew how to research. But like the attitude towards work and the personality and the drive, just going above and beyond, not just turning up to work and do your day and then head home. They're always willing to put in those extra yards, without even being asked, and they share our values and our culture, and that's and when we've got that fit, we're a beautiful team. We can work perfectly.
You can grow and nurture the organic talent.
Exactly, yeah. And look, it's we reward everyone equally in that regard. When we've got people that stand out, we nurture them and help them grow and where they want to go to. Yeah.
Exactly. So it sounds like it would be a nice place to work.
Well, I think it is.
Now, all the insight you've provided and the experiences across your journey have been, I think, really, really insightful. And we always sort of end this interview on what you What are the perks of the most interesting about your job? I mean, obviously, I mean, Necker Island, that's probably pretty hard to top. But if there's anything else you've got to say or anything like that that you know, that you just enjoy doing, or again, what gets you out of bed every day?
Yeah, well, look, if I think about it as, you know, if 14 years ago I had said to myself, you know, you're going to have 2 companies that are doing amazing things for the environment. You're going to meet Richard Branson. You're going to meet Arnold Schwarzenegger. You're going to do all these really cool things. I would have, you know,
You shit me, man.
there's no way, you know, I wouldn't have believed that at all. But look, you never know where your journey's going to take you. But if you're true to yourself and true to your purpose and your core values and stick with it, you know, you can do whatever you want. You just need to have that drive as well.
Wise words from a man that was at a futon factory to Necker Island to now running 2 of his own science-based businesses. So thank you very much, Matt, for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.